My name is Charlie Kinnear. I'm the owner of Reliable Maritime Solutions, and I'm the acting technical director for Villa Vie Residences, and I'm also the general project manager for the reactivation and revitalization of the Odyssey. I was raised in Connecticut, but spent most of my life in Florida. And I retired from the Coast Guard after 26 years. The last 8 years was spent inspecting vessels, mostly cruise ships.
It's just like a normal drill for the crew, but they're always intimidated by the fact that we've got US Coast Guard personnel on board. If you have a problem, it's my responsibility.
Okay, we're getting ready to go on the lifeboat. Everybody go for a ride? If this was an actual emergency and we did have to get into the lifeboat, what's the first thing we're going to do once we get inside the lifeboat and get down to the water?
Sit them down in sequence accordingly to fit everybody in.
The last 4 years I spent in Miami at the Center of Excellence for the Coast Guard, teaching inspectors how to inspect cruise ships and doing the inspections all over the world for new builds and reactivations. And after that, I went to a company called DNV, which I'm sure we'll talk some more about, but DNV stands for Det Norske Veritas. They are a classification society that does the surveys to ensure the vessels are in compliance with all the rules and regulations on behalf of the different flags. And after that, I was president and general manager of 2 different small cruise lines out of Florida. And finally, in 2010, with my good friend and business partner, George Zeitler, we started Reliable Maritime Solutions. And since then, we've been helping owners comply with the various regulations, get through dry docks, and get their vessels ready for sailing all over the world. Back in November of last year, we did the pre-purchase survey on the vessel, discussed at length the condition of the vessel, what we saw, the potential that we saw on the vessel.
So all your exhaust heat comes up, goes into the economizers up here, which is a series of tubes, heats up that water. That water comes down and helps preheat a lot of other things in the engine room.
Despite that she had been laid up for 4 years, there was a lot of good things to see. And of course, we knew there would be a lot of work getting her reactivated and up to speed.
Okay, so here we are the morning of day 2. Last night they started pressure washing. This is just what we call the wash. This is to get all the growth off before it dries and hardens, because once it's hardened, it's very hard to get off. Today's day 9 of the dry dock. Things are finally starting to pick up. We've got work up here on deck 8. Deck 5, lifeboats, hull, engine room. It's finally starting to look like a proper dry dock.
The way I think about it is I'm here to protect the owners, the crew, and the ship. Safety has always got to be my first thought. Is it financially safe? And does it make sense to do it on behalf of the owners? Each step of the project, looking at it and making sure that it's worth doing. Do we have to do it? And does it make sense now and in the future? The second is the officers and crew and everybody on board. Safety has to be first. It's a dangerous environment that we work in. There's stuff going on all the time. And to make the decisions on to do a certain part of the project or a certain project within the project, that it has to be looked at first from a safety point. not just is it safe to do it, but will it be safe in the future? What are the effects of either doing or not doing a particular part of the project?
So this is the morning lounge, I believe it was called. We've turned it into our safety center. So this is where, if anybody is going to do any hot work with a torch or welding, they got to come up here and fill out a permit first. We got to assign fire watches. We have to make sure that if they're doing any kind of cabling or piping, that they fill out a form and it's inspected before they do that. And of course, one of the most dangerous ones is the confined space entry. Before anybody can go into a tank or a confined space, it has to be opened up, ventilated. The oxygen in the space has to be tested.
Everything that we're doing on the technical side has to be done. It is paramount that we make sure that the vessel is 100% safe in compliance with all of the class rules and the international regulations. That has to come first, because if that doesn't happen, then the vessel doesn't sail. So that decision actually is not that difficult in what we have to do. It's how we have to do it and how much of it we do right now. Having been on board when it was laid up back in November, I kind of knew what to expect. But when you're faced with it, knowing that you're going to be responsible for getting it into service and making sure it's in compliance, it's overwhelming. We're doing something that nobody's ever done before, is to take a ship 30 years old, been laid up for 4 years, cold layup, and bring her back to life. A project like this is very much like a dance, a very chaotic dance. Everybody comes on board, they know what they want to do, they want to do their own thing, they want to help, they want to get it done, but they're all marching to their own tune. And so it's my job to take all of these people, match them up with the proper other partners and materials, and try to get everybody working together to keep that rhythm going underneath the chaotic dance. Just keep the rhythm going so that everybody keeps moving in the same direction, and eventually it turns out to be a very nice dance instead of just a chaotic one. The team has just been unbelievable. And when you talk about the team, you're talking about a lot of different people, a lot of different companies. There's dozens of partners in this venture. From Colombia, who is our technical managers and provide the crew, to DNV, who is here to ensure we're completely in compliance and make sure the vessel is safe. Holland Wolf, the shipyard, and Graham Koser and his team have been very accommodating. The crew's been unbelievable. They were completely overwhelmed when they walked in, and as they should be. They walked onto a cold vessel, sitting in shore power. They kept taking the next step, which is all I could tell them was, please, take the next step. Let's see where it leads us. Take the next step. And every day we'd take that next step until now, here we are in the shipyard. And it's mainly because of the tenacity of the owners to make sure that we kept going, and the crew willing to take that next step. So it's been a challenge, but here we are. We've managed to have some laughs along the way, simply because you just had to laugh, because it seemed like every step that we would take. Somebody wanted to throw a wall in front of us, so we'd take one step forward and somebody would knock us backwards or at least sideways. Am I too close? Okay, we're sitting inside a gray water tank that we opened up recently for inspection by DMV, and unfortunately what we found was not good. A lot of the bottom plate is very thin. It's below its minimum thickness, so we're going to have to cut it out. You can see down here we've got holes in the frame. We've got deep pitting. This pit is more than 50% through the plate. We're only allowed 20% at the most. So basically, this bulkhead here, where you see that X, all the way over to that corner, all of this plate has to come out. I think some of the fondest memories in the beginning, if you want to call them fond, is, and you were there, when we were eating cold pizza and throwing darts, waiting for somebody to tell us we can make the next step. Vessel was cold. The only warm place on the ship was in your cabin, and there was a couple of times where we just would look at each other and start laughing because there was nothing else to do except for laugh about it and keep going, So those are some of my fondest memories. Some of the good things that have been happening is everybody kept telling me that, this is going to be terrible. We can't do this. We can't do that. This is broken. That's broken. That won't work. And I kept saying, take the next step. And we would find out that it wasn't quite as bad as we thought it was. Okay. So we've had a lot of good news over the last couple of weeks about some of the equipment that we expected to be in worse condition. Some of the components down in the engine room that when we opened them up, we thought we would have a lot of problems, and they weren't as bad as we thought. So there's been a lot of good news. It's been very difficult too. Sometimes you touch one thing only to find out that there's 3 other things broken. A simple example is the numerous valves that we have, obviously, down in the engine room. Most of them were cranked down, closed 4 years ago. So you go to open them and you can't even open them. You got to take them apart and clean them before you can even use them. Like I said, there's been nothing like it. I'm used to working in this kind of environment, but this is completely different. Normally I get involved in the planning of the dry dock and then show up when we get to dry dock like everybody else, maybe a week before, sail on the vessel. In this case, I was here with the owners, trying to advise them on what we could do, what we can't do. We had to issue all new certificates to the vessel. So we did that as a cargo vessel so that we wouldn't have to comply. There was no way we were going to comply with all the regulations for a passenger vessel, which we were okay with. We just wanted a one-way trip to the shipyard here. And that proved very challenging to get all the insurance in place, to get the flag of the Bahamas to grant us permission to do it, to get DMV here to certify what we needed to do to make that single voyage. We had to service all the firefighting equipment. We had to certify enough life-saving equipment for the crew. It was a challenge. It really was. It was very stressful because every day that we sat there meant one less day here in the dry dock. It meant money that we were spending on sitting there instead of money we could spend here in the dry dock doing the things that we knew we had to do. It was a very stressful time on all of us, on the crew, on the owners, everybody here that was on board. But thankfully, that's in the rearview mirror at this point. In the end, it all worked out. Yeah, so the way I break this project down is into 4 different phases. The first phase was getting us from Babcock, where the vessel had laid, that was in Rosyth, it was the yard, where the vessel was on shore tie. And we had nothing. The vessel was cold. The only thing that was happening on the vessel was a few cabin heaters, a couple of pumps for water and sewage, and that was basically it. And one small little galley up on deck 8 to feed the crew. Phase 2 was trying to get the vessel ready to sail here to Belfast. That meant getting all the class surveys done, getting all the documents in place, all the insurance in place, insurance surveys, and that was pretty challenging as well.
And to start the preparation with the rest of the crew members plus the technical support from the owners and the management company to set up the safety first, all the mechanical service that needs to bring the vessel from Rosyth to the Belfast safe.
When you have the 4 colleagues around you on board and somebody throw the task in front of you which says that in 3 days you need to disconnect the shore power, and 2 weeks later you're supposed to depart to Belfast, it's it's not so nice feeling, but as said, the team was really good. Actually team is very good because all these colleagues, they are still on board, and honestly speaking, without these guys, I will dare to say that we would still be in Scotland.
So now I look at it as if we're in phase 3, and that is the revitalization. Not just of the hotel side, but of course everything else that needs to be done. Phase 3 is a little more familiar territory to all of us. We've done this before, maybe not under these circumstances, but we know what needs to be done. It's going to be a challenge, but we've got a great team, and I think we'll make it. This is the business center, or will be the business center. Work is starting in the next couple of days here. Carpet's coming up, all the furniture's got to come out.
And we're actually starting to build some of our rooms and our workspaces for the business center.
The 4th phase is compliance and safety. That is when we have to bring the authorities on board, such as the MCA, which is the British Coast Guard, eventually we'll have to bring the Coast Guard on board, and of course we have to pass all of our DMV surveys. So, and then the final touches to make sure that the vessel is safe and ready for the residents to come on board. So that'll be phase 4, and we're starting to look at that now and the challenges of that. Well, what we're actually focusing on at the moment is what we call the class rules, okay, or the renewal scope. So that is the class rules. The Classification Society is responsible for making sure that, one, the ship was built to the proper standards, and that it's been maintained to those standards since it was built. And so now all of that has been ignored for 4 years, and we're starting all over again. So the first part is getting us back into compliance with the class rules, which is what we've been talking about opening up the engines, making sure they're in good shape and have been properly maintained up to this point. The generators, everything from watertight doors to, like I said, the propellers, the rudders, everything. Those are the rules that we have to comply with. Then there's the regulations that we have to comply with. The first regulations is you shall comply with the rules. So that's the first thing. And then you get into all the safety, which is all the bridge equipment. There's standards that we have to have. We've got to have certain radars. We've got to have certain communication systems. They all have to be serviced, certified. All the life-saving equipment, the lifeboats are being completely refurbished, but the davits.
So we're at one of our lifeboat davits here. If you remember from previous videos, we had some large steel platforms that covered all of the cables and the hydraulic piping here. We've had to cut that out because the hydraulic piping is corroded, needs to be replaced. We have to replace the wires for the lifeboat davits, and we're gonna construct some new platforms to climb over and go out the railing.
All the wire cables that lower and raise the lifeboats have to be changed. They're too old. They have to be changed. All the hydraulics have to be reworked and tested. Same with all the watertight doors, fire screen doors. Most people, when they walk around the ship, they don't realize how much safety goes into every single compartment, whether that's your cabin, the restaurant, public areas, the spa. Everything has smoke detection, has firefighting capabilities, has structural fire protection. The materials have to be correct, and we have to go through all of that. And that's actually my specialty. I do that a lot to make sure that these vessels are in compliance on that side. So George and I are very comfortable in doing that, and we'll work closely with DMV to make sure that we're ready for the other authorities that will come on and make sure that we did that. So it's quite the challenge. I am most proud of being able to hold this team together and work with these people on a daily basis, because they are fantastic. And they deserve 100% from me. And so every morning I have to wake up and realize that I have to give 100% if I'm going to ask that of them. And I am always, always proud of when I'm able to put a team together and hold that team together. I've been behind this concept from the beginning. I'd like to take this moment to really thank the owners, Kathy and Mike, personally, for their foresight and vision, but more importantly, their tenacity in pushing this project forward. It's been really something to behold. They just don't, there's no quitting them. You can't even mention oh, we're not going to be able to do this, or they don't accept that. And if it wasn't for them and their tenacity, none of us would be here. That's a fact. So I saw the potential in the vessel. I knew the potential of the business model. And when you marry that together with the tenacity and willingness of Mike and Kathy, it's a win. It's a win for everybody. And we just have to keep moving forward. We're going to get there. We just got to keep moving forward.
So if there's one thing you could say to the residents and founders, what would it be?
Thank you. Thank you for having faith in this product. Thank you for having faith in us to be able to get this ship done. Thank you for your patience. I know it can't be easy sitting back listening to all the media and a lot of the naysayers out there, looking at the timelines and wondering if we're going to be able to do it. Many people have invested their money, their life savings into this project. And all I can tell you is we are working every day, giving 110%. And thank you is really all you can say to that.